Welcome back to the Early Edge. Let's bring in Danny Brasco now, our guy, always in our corner when it comes to combat sports and helping us really to get set for UFC 318. Danny, it does feel like there's a lot of sneaky value across this card. So let's start with your favorite prelim bet. It looks like you've got Oliveira at minus 148. What stands out to you about this matchup and why do you like him to get it done?
Yeah, awesome card. This is the featured prelim, and I like Vinicius Oliveira because he's a tough style to deal with. He's taking on his toughest opponent yet in Kyler Phillips, who's also a very shifty, rangy, kind of a awkward angle, always throwing you a lot of looks kind of style of fighter. But I think Oliveira's pressure can negate a lot of that lateral movement and a lot of those different looks and stance switches that Phillips will show at him. Oliveira's got this physical, wiry frame. He pours on the forward pressure, and he proved in his last fight he can grapple. He almost submitted Saeed Nurmagomedov, and the last name should tell you everything you need to know. If his grappling is up to par with a guy with that name, Katie, he can hang on the ground. And I think he's going to be a problem later on in this fight where Kyler Phillips, who relies on his movement, has started to labor on, maybe in the late second, third round. If it's tied going into the third round, I think Oliveira's pressure will win out and he can break Phillips a little bit.
Okay, I love that analysis there. Let's also look at the prop market. It seems like you have dialed in on Kevin Holland here. He's always dangerous, Danny, but what makes this the right fight to back him the way that you are going to?
Yeah, he's more dangerous than ever at 170 pounds. Welterweight Holland is a problem. He's so rangy and long for the division. He's going to be bigger than almost all of his opponents. And he's showing that he's not just dangerous with the straight punches from halfway across the cage or his kicks or awkward strikes, but he can also lace up those nasty front chokes on the ground, use those long limbs in the grappling, like you see right there with that signature Darce choke. He's taken on an old veteran who's tough in Daniel Rodriguez, but at 38 years old, I don't think he can stand up to welterweight Holland. So I think either a choke or a long straight punch is coming to put D-Rod away. I like Holland to win inside the distance.
Okay, yeah, that is a KO, TKO, or sub minus 135. Love it. All right, let's juice it up a little bit. What's your favorite parlay or combo play to build around this weekend? Is it a value builder? Is it a banger parlay, a big payout? What you got for us?
This one's a value builder. I'm parlaying some chalky legs, but I think it's fairly safe. There's a lot of big favorites on this card, some dogs that I don't want to quite take a stab at. So I like these safe favorites. First off, let's start with Bruno Ferreira early on this card. This guy is a monster, and he's taking on a guy in Jackson McVeigh who's only 6-0 in his MMA career. He's kind of getting thrusted into this spot after an initial bout was canceled. Ferreira is a vicious finisher, and I think he shows his jiu-jitsu experience out in this fight. He can take him to the mat and put him in deep trouble. Watch out for an arm bar or an arm triangle. I think he shows that experience level there. I'm going to pair him up with Dan Ige, who I think has a great matchup against Patricio Pitbull, a guy that was a former Bellator champion, but we've seen the level difference of the Bellator guys versus the UFC guys. I was a believer in some of them, no longer, Katie. I think Dan Ige is at the peak of his career right now. This will be his 20th UFC fight, and he looked really good in his last knockout win over Sean Woodson. I think he'll be that more active and busier fighter. Pitbull, just not active enough sometimes, so I don't think he wins rounds. Pair that up with Kevin Holland at the very end, Katie. I told him why I love him. Huge favorite in that matchup for good reason. And we finally get to plus money. Plus 103 in that little three-legger for you.
I was going to say, I love a value play because I feel like sometimes in the UFC, it is really hard to find any kind of plus money value unless you're taking an outright dog. So this really helps us get some good wins, get some plus money under our belt. But let's talk about those dogs here. Who's going to be barking? Who do you think has a chance to upset the odds? And what's their path to victory?
Yeah, like I mentioned, not too many dogs I love, but one I think could bark is Marvin Vettori, the Italian Dream. And he's on a bit of a tough skid. He's faced really high-level competition. He's a guy that's pretty hittable. He's always been criticized for his weak boxing defense, but he's tough as they come, Katie, and he's improving his boxing offense. He's fighting a tough opponent in Brendan Allen, who's also really improved his striking game, but Allen's on a bit of a weird skid himself. He can fight in close split decisions. He can fade a little bit at times, and I think he's taken a lot of damage as of late. If Vettori fights with a fire inside him, really moves forward and just throws caution to the wind, I think he could put him in trouble. Vettori is fighting in honor of his brother who died in a tragic fire accident, and I think he really could fight with just that fire inside him. Mind the term, but I think he really brings it together for this fight and shows out. So I think he's a live dog at this price and could make it close.
Yeah, anytime you add some narrative like that, when somebody is fighting on behalf of someone that they love, they always do find something inside of them, some kind of like Herculean power. So that's really interesting, and I do like that, and I do like that value at plus 180 as well. So Danny, let's move here to the main event. When you look at this headliner, we've got some good names on this. So what's your approach to this? Are you betting the winner? Are you betting the method or the rounds? What do you like?
I'm going to go ahead and pick a winner, Katie. And in his retirement fight, I think Dustin shines bright like a diamond. Oh my goodness, Katie. This is such an epic battle. The trilogy between Poirier and Holloway. Poirier's 2-1, 2-0, excuse me. He has the first two matches against him. He was able to submit Holloway really quickly in his debut early on 2012. So let's throw that out the window. 2019, one of the best fights you'll watch. And Poirier was able to win 49-46 by using his power differential. Holloway is known for that pressure boxing style. He's going to stay in your face and he's going to look to break you, weaponize his cardio and weaponize that tight boxing. But Poirier is one of those fighters that you just can't break in a boxing match. He uses that slick, crafty southpaw boxing style, and the power differential that he has really assisted him in firing off a counterpunch and getting Holloway to back up off him a little bit. Holloway can put him up against the fence and land maybe 8-9 punches, but a lot of those were glancing off the guard, rolling off the shoulders, and even slipping off the forehead of Poirier, who's so crafty about not letting things land clean. When he fires back and lands a check right hook, a counter left hand down the middle, bang, it hurts Holloway. It opens up damage. And I think that differential can continue to aid him stylistically because Holloway has to move forward. That's what he does. Even though he's the longer guy, he doesn't really fight on the outside. If he does move backward and Poirier is the one moving forward, he can land more shots and look good as the fighter that's bringing that aggression. So I think the style favors him. And Katie, the thing I love that I heard most from Poirier is that he said, I'm retiring from the sport. I don't want the sport to retire me, which means he's fully ready to go for this last epic fight. He can stamp his legacy with a clean sweep over Holloway. It kind of feels like Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor was the dog and then won a dominant decision. I think Poirier can show that he does not deserve to be the dog. Give me Dustin the Diamond at plus 120.
Well, look, I'm ready to run through a brick wall at this point. And, I feel like we've seen a lot of interesting UFC cards this summer. This feels like a really good one. You're opening up, you got Oliveira, then you got Dustin Poirier in his, retirement fight, if you will. Does this card feel a little bit more exciting than some of the ones we've seen?
Well, it's pretty epic. I mean, we have Ilya Topuria, the superstar that emerged. He's really injected new life into the UFC. But I think this is an awesome one just for the setting, of course, in New Orleans, where Poirier is from. The storylines are going to be incredible. And of course, Max Holloway, also one of our favorite fighters ever. He's up at lightweight now for a longer time. He's built himself out. So the questions about where their durability and power are at following a KO loss to Ilya Topuria for Max, a recent KO loss to Justin Gaethje with that head kick for Poirier. Where will they be at in this fight if it's another epic war? Who's going to fall first? I can't wait to see, Katie. It's an epic main event. Some other sneaky bangers on this card, too.
I would agree with you. Real quick, just 30 seconds or less. Best bet for UFC 318.
You got to look at Dan 50K Ige. I got him at minus 170. He's up to minus 210 now. I just mentioned that Patricio Pitbull, when I'm pairing Ige and the parlay, I just don't think he'll be active enough to win rounds. And Ige, it's counterpuncher versus counterpuncher. I think Ige just does a lot more each round. He's never been knocked out in his career, so you're not going to hurt this guy. I think he can win this fight.